back to my channel. My name is Bettina, I'm the makeup enthusiast. In today's video, I'm sharing with you my update on my Panda palette series. I've been working on these palettes since January of this year. So if you want to see how I'm going, then stay tuned. But before we get into the video, if you are new around here and you love watching project painting related content or any other beauty related content, make sure you subscribe down below. And without further ado, let's jump on into the video. Alright, so I've been working on two palettes in my Pan That Face palette series since January. I've been working on these two palettes. So I've been working on the Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronze and Glow, and I've also been working on the Tarte Amazonian Clay Blush Wheel. So the blush wheel contains 10 different blushes and 8 blushes, 2 highlighters, and the Bronze and Glow contains a bronzer and a highlighter. So I've been working on both of these since the start of January. My goal was it started off by trying to hit pan on both the bronzer and the highlighter in the Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronze and Glow. I've since changed that to just wanting to hit pan on the bronzer because I know the highlighter is not going to happen this year. So I abandoned the trying to hit pan on the highlighter goal for this one. My goal for the blush wheel was just to hit pan on one particular blush in this palette. So let's see how we're going. We might start off with the Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronze and Glow because last month you guys saw in my video I managed to hit pan on the bronzer between filming my update and taking the photos for my progress shots. I stupidly didn't do it on the same day, and I took the photos I think it was 2 or 3 days later, and I managed to hit the teeniest little pan on that bronzer. Since then I have managed to expand it, and I am quite happy with how much I have managed to expand it. I think I've done a very good job with expanding it quite considerably. So there is this big pan in the middle there. I'm very happy with the progress I've made on this one. And I am seeing around the edges here, especially this side, I'm finding there's a lot more progress. I've been trying to focus my brush on this side in the center here, but for some reason I'm just not making as much good progress on this side as I am on the outside here. So I'm happy to see that this one has a really nice decent pan on it, and yeah, that is the update on this one. The highlighter, I've just completely abandoned this highlighter. I came to the conclusion it wasn't going to happen, and since then I've just kind of thrown my hands up in the air and gone, I'm done with it for this year. So I have not made any more progress on the highlighter than I already had. And I think that's how it's going to stay for the rest of the year, unfortunately. So that is the update on that one. And then next is my Tarte blush wheel, and I am very happy to report that I did hit my goal of trying to hit pan on the color Montage, which is this one here. It is only quite a small pan, as you can see there. It's quite a small pan, but I am counting it as a win nonetheless. So I'm happy to say I managed to hit pan on Montage. Since hitting pan on Montage, I have been dabbling across this palette a little bit. For the most part though, I have been working on the color Concept, and you will see I have expanded the pan on Concept very well as well. So I think I've made some great progress on this palette, and the pan on Concept is getting so big. So very happy with that one. I think the next goal on Concept should be to clear out the ring. There's a ring there, clear out the other side of the ring. I think that would be a great goal to try and focus on. Eventually I would like to see pans on the 3 blushes up the top here, but I just think given that we're in winter currently in Australia at the moment, I think the colors down the bottom being a little bit more cooler toned are more suitable for me at this point in time of the year, whereas these ones up the top here I think are better suited for the summertime. So I think for now, I am just going to be happy with the progress that I've made. I now have pan on 5 of the blushes in this palette, and I feel like I'm getting quite close to maybe potentially having one whole pan completely finished. So that's how we're tracking on this little blush palette. I only had on my list of goals for this year, or panning goals for this year, to hit pan on montage in this palette. So I have achieved my goal for the year. I would like to maybe see it be a little bit of a bigger goal met, but it is fine. I'm happy with just a little tiny bit of pan that I've hit there. That is goal met, I think. That's goal met and half a goal met. But I'm still going to call this a win because I'm very happy with the amount of pan that I've been able to hit on the Film Star Bronze and Glow. And I'm very happy to see that it's like looking used and abused. This palette's been in my collection for quite some time, and it was looking almost brand new for quite some time. So I'm happy to see that you can definitely tell now that I have used this, and I've used it quite a lot. So I'm happy with that. This palette, my socks are blown off by how good this palette is looking with the 5 pans in all of those blushes there. So definitely at some point in the future, I want to try and have some of these pans completely finished up, and I want to see pan hit in more of these other, you know, completely brand spanking new looking palettes or brand spanking new looking pans. I'm thinking potentially using the highlighters in this palette for some frankening, but I haven't quite decided just yet about that. So that might be something that I'm going to do in the second half of this year. I'm going to have a play around using these highlighters because I don't really like them by themselves. So I'm going to have a play around with using these highlighters. There's 2 of them in this palette. I'm going to have a play with potentially using them as like a glowy blush. So pairing them with something else and then frankening them. So stay tuned for that. You might see maybe this palette return at some point later in the year. So all that being said, I am going to rotate these out. One, because I am so sick of grabbing for the same palette every day. So I've been working on these for almost 6 months straight now. So I am calling it quits on these palettes. I've met my goals, so I am going to rotate them out. And to replace these 2, I am actually only going to rotate in 1 palette. And there is a little bit of method in my madness. So I am going to rotate in my Tarte Off the Cuff Amazonian Clay blush palette. I have a lot of, I was going to say I have a lot of Tarte blush palettes. I actually only have 2. This is a very old Tarte blush palette. So it is looking used and abused for the most part. My goal is to expand pans on this one. Potentially maybe have 1 or 2 of these pans completely used up. Maybe I would really like to hit pan on this one in here that hasn't got a pan yet, but this is how it's looking at the moment. This one on the end here actually has like a double, almost triple pan in it, because I did actually utilize this one to create the Franken blush that I was working on in my team project pan this year. This palette is definitely one that I'm thinking I might use maybe like 1 or 2, like these 2 here, because I don't love how they look by themselves. I might maybe start having a play with using the rest of the pans on those 2 as Franken blushes. So that's where this palette might come back into play at some point. So I'm going to have a play around with this palette. This is the oldest blush palette that I have in my collection. So I would like to see maybe some pans emptying in this palette, maybe getting to the point of having it decluttered / completely used up. So the rest of the year, I think, or maybe a good couple of months, maybe like 3 or 4 months, I'm going to have a good solid play with this one just to see how much pan expansion I can get on the palette, to see if the formula is still alright and to see if potentially I could do some mixing frankening, because there are a few highlighters and other blushes in my collection that I don't love by themselves, but they potentially could be candidates with a bit of playing for a like new and improved Franken blush. So I'm going to have a play around in my collection and get a little bit scientific, experimental with the rest of this palette, and I think maybe that's a good way that I can use up the rest of the palette, and also maybe I could potentially get some really good pan expansion on some of these other palettes or some of these other pans in the palette of the blushes that I actually do enjoy wearing. And it's also got a good variety of colors that I can use going forward. I've got a bronzer included in here, and I also have the highlighter that I'm working on in my deck of panning. So I think between this palette and like my cream products that I'm working on in my Partners in Cream and the palette that I have in my deck of panning, I think I've got a good well-rounder for like a good amount of time going forward, and also like not too many clashes. I was thinking about like rotating in a couple of other palettes, and I was also thinking about rotating in like a duo like I normally do, but I think just to get a good amount of progress on this palette and the other palettes that I'm working on and the other products I'm working on, I think just having one is a good choice for now, so as to not overwhelm myself, because I have a tendency to go big or go home with project panning, and sometimes that can end up being overwhelming. I might get bored of it. I might be happy to continue on. So I'm just going to say maybe 4 months for now. Once we hit that 4-month mark, I might reassess and then decide what I'm going to do for the last 3 months of the year. I just think maybe I can keep the spark alive with this palette if I do go in and do some frankening, but I might also get bored with it if I just am using the same palette most days. So we'll gauge how we go with it. So that's my progress. That's my progress on these two palettes. Very happy with my progress. And my new roll in for this project. Let me know how you're going on panning any face products that you're currently trying to work on, or any face palettes you're working on. Wish me luck with my new roll in, and let me know if you have any ideas of some good products to mix or franken this with. If you have this palette, or you have had this palette in the past and you frankened some of it, let me know how you went and like what you used to mix it with. That's my new palette for my Pan That palette that I'm going to be working on. Wish me luck down in the comments. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know what you've been up to lately. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you are new around here and you want to keep up to date on all my future project panning updates. That's it for this video, beautiful. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye, beautiful.